Hi everyone, welcome to another video. Today I'm in a Generation 1 Audi R8 V10 with the Artronic gearbox. I owned one of these a few years ago, absolutely loved it. It also had the Artronic gearbox, which I actually really liked. And this video is about how I think the Artronic gearbox is maybe a bit misunderstood, what I think you can do to get more enjoyment out of it, and also, crucially, tackle the major problem of clutch wear and what you can do to make the clutches last longer with this Artronic box. So, first of all, what is the Artronic gearbox? Well, it was Audi's version of effectively the same Lamborghini Gallardo gearbox, the E-gear. It's a robotized manual, so it's not an automatic, although it has an automatic function. It is a robotized manual, very similar to the same era Ferrari and Maserati F1 gearboxes. So essentially, the car does the clutch pedal for you, but you're changing gear. So why do I think this gearbox is misunderstood? I think because people have perhaps used this as an automatic in some cases. It's not an automatic despite having that automatic function. The Generation 2, of course, brought in a dual clutch gearbox, and that was quite different, much faster changes. And I think if you drive this in automatic mode, it's not great. So perhaps I can show you now. We'll stick this in automatic. And of course it has a sport and let's call it comfort setting. And the non-sport setting, the comfort setting, does slur the gear changes quite a bit, but you can see how jerky this is. This is in auto mode, I'm not doing anything. Not great, very jerky, and this is exactly why it gets a bad name. We'll put that now in auto in sport. Slightly less jerky actually, and changing a bit higher gears obviously, but it slips the clutch a bit less, and that can actually help with the clutch wear. So if you don't have it in sport, I believe it'll slip the clutch a bit more, and obviously that creates more wear. So that's auto mode. I never drive it in auto mode, so we'll now stick this into manual, and so then we've still got the sport or the normal function for, I guess, how harsh the gear changes are, if you like. And now we can use either this sequential shifter to manually shift, or we can use the paddles here. So I'll show you, this is changing down with the paddles. It does a nice blip on the downshift, which is really nice. And then I will flat shift now, so I'm not going to take my foot off the accelerator, changing up with the paddle, still quite jerky. That's in non-sport mode, and if we go into sport, it's quite jerky, and this is why it gets a bad name. I'm not revving it high, the car's still warming up. We'll drive it a bit harder in a minute. So that's with the paddles. I don't think they work that well. I prefer using the sequential shifter. So then the final way you can do it is, as I say, with the sequential shifter. So pushing it forwards will change up a gear, and pulling it towards you, that changes down. Nice blips on the downshift. So again, I'll show you, this is now using the sequential shifter, but flat shifting, not taking my foot off the accelerator. So we'll change up. Again, quite jerky. That's in sport mode. If we take it out of sport, show you again. And you know, quite jerky. So I get why people didn't like that, but for me, the only way to drive this is to drive it exactly like you drive a manual. So you've got to remember, this is a robotized manual, it's not an automatic. And if you drive it and think of it the same as a manual, I think it drives nicely and it's engaging. So what do I mean by that? Well, lift off the accelerator when you change gear. So let me show you again. We'll get down to first gear. And now I'm going to use the sequential shifter, but every gear change, I'm going to take my foot off the accelerator and shift and put it back on, just like I was changing gear with a manual car, except the clutch pedal's being done for us. And if you look at that, I mean, that's totally smooth. There's no jerkiness at all. Now, I think not only does this add a lot more engagement, I really enjoy using this, but it also removes that main criticism that people had about this jerkiness. I think it's excellent, and you know, you can drive this harder in a similar way. It's great fun. So yeah, that's what I would say. I think if you drive this like a manual, it is extremely rewarding and engaging to drive. I would argue more than a dual clutch gearbox in some ways. So I'll show you a bit harder acceleration. And look, that's no jerkiness at all, right? Now clearly it's not as fast as a dual clutch, there's no doubt about that. But I think the criticism is undeserved, and I think if you drive it like that, huge fun. I would say that this tends to be the wrong way round for me. I think you should be shifting down by pushing it away from you, but there we go. That Audi seem to sometimes do their controls the wrong way round, in my opinion. And this does get a bad reputation, and sometimes deservedly so, for being quite clunky, low speed. Manoeuvring, for example, is quite clunky, jerky. It's, you know, it doesn't release the clutch very smoothly when you're manoeuvring, you know, into a parking space or something like that. And I have to say, I do agree with that. It's not the best at low speed maneuvers. You know, it's not really what it's meant for. And I would agree with that to a point. It's not terrible though. So clutch wear issues. There's a few things you can do to help reduce clutch wear on this, because they are hideously expensive to replace, you know, many thousands of pounds. This one just had the clutches replaced 6 months ago. It's actually for sale, so contact me if you're interested in this car. But what can you do? Well, auto mode, because it slurs and slushes the gears a bit more to try and make it a bit smoother, and in non-sport mode, I understand that, you know, effectively it's slipping the clutch a little bit to make it more comfortable, and so that can increase wear. Now, logic would tell you that if you're flat shifting when you're changing gear yourself manually, that would also introduce more clutch wear, right? That's logical. Whereas if you're taking your foot off, there's no power going through the clutch as it's changing gear, so it doesn't slip in the same way. But also some of the major things you can do to reduce wear on this is, you know, when you're low speed maneuvers, so now we're cruising along, it's second gear, but we're only doing about 10 miles an hour, right? And it will effectively slip the clutch when you're doing this at low speed. If you just pop into neutral when you're in traffic and don't sit in traffic in first gear at traffic lights when effectively the gear is engaged, but it's slipping the clutch to stop you moving, I suppose, effectively, then that can really increase the longevity of the clutches as well. So don't sit at traffic lights with it in first gear, just knock it into neutral, and when you're doing this, when it's just rolling along in second gear, I think there will be some element of clutch slip. Just hit it into neutral, and then when you're ready to move off, you can put it back into gear and accelerate away. So that can really help. Just a quick rundown. I'm not an expert on these, this is just my experience and also what I've read over the years on the forums, etc. Let me know your thoughts and any extra information on this Artronic gearbox. Don't let it put you off. These are way cheaper than the manuals now, particularly in the V10s, and I think they're an incredibly good buy and still huge fun and really engaging. So recommend anyone get one of these R8 V10s with an Artronic gearbox. Thanks very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. See you soon.